Welcome to Run, Build, Grow, the podcast that laces up its running shoes and dives deep into the heartbeat of the communal spirit of running. I'm your host, Andrew Ware, the Runnin' Rev, and I'm thrilled to take you on this exhilarating journey where we explore stories that go beyond the pavement. And I know I have not been in your feeds for a few weeks now, friends. It has been a big self-care time. I've been taking weeks off, but I've also been really busy. And so I've kind of had to prioritize some things over other things. I've had to prioritize work and family. And unfortunately, that has meant that the podcast kind of had to take a back seat. But I am back in your feeds now with a brand new episode and one that I am excited to bring to your podcast feeds. In this episode, I'm having a conversation with Christi Dee. Christi is from the Indianapolis, Central Indiana running community. She does so much amazing stuff there. She is a coach. She is an author. She is a community leader. I mean, she is doing so many amazing things, not just for Central Indiana, but just for the state and nature of communal running. And so, as I got to see her and learn a little bit on her Instagram account, I knew that she would make a great guest. And so I knew I had to get her on. But before we get into it, I'd like to shout out my partnership with Lucky Road Run Shop. Are you ready to run strong and feel great doing it? At Lucky Road Run Shop, they specialize in making every runner, walker, and fitness enthusiast get that perfect fit. Their trained staff takes the time to analyze your gait, your stride, and match you with the right shoe because the right fit changes everything. With top brands like Ultra, Asics, Brooks, Hoka, Mizuno, New Balance, On, Saucony, Topo, they carry the best gear to keep you moving comfortably mile after mile. Visit one of their Central Virginia locations and check them out at luckyroadrunshop.com because every step should feel like a lucky one. Lucky Road Run Shop, where the journey begins. And now let's jump into this episode with Christi Dee. All right, welcome in everybody to another episode. Today, I'm excited to be joined by coach, runner, author, lots of taglines with this person, Christi Dee. Christi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. As soon as I saw your Instagram and everything, you reached out to me after the episode with Lindsey Hahn. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, this is a runner who's got a lot of amazing things going on in the community. So let's get started right there where we always start on the podcast. What is your community and what makes your community awesome?
So I love this question. I love talking about community when I am getting to know new people. The Central Indiana running community is just outstanding. Everybody here is so supportive of each other, and I just really appreciate and feel super thankful to be involved in the Central Indiana running community. There's several different segments within that community that I'm really connected to. One being I've met a lot of really great friends through Orange Theory, where I cross train. And there's also a lot of different running clubs that are really open and interested in growing and having new people join. So I love meeting up with the different running clubs and getting to know new people regularly. On almost anybody, any small group that I am connected with that I feel like have a lot of driven people, I just really like to tap into that and become a part of it. I've always been one to think, it's cliche, but, never be the smartest person in the room, never be the fastest person at the track, never be the most driven. You become who you surround yourself by. And my little segments of various communities are definitely something that help drive me.
And I think, I've explored in this podcast for a while now, that becomes one of the things, right? Community is something that can make us better, and not necessarily saying like they're going to make us better as in I'm going to be faster, right? It doesn't always translate to speed, but they'll make me better physically, better mentally, better emotionally, and all of these different ways that they can build on top of one another. And so where did this nature of community begin for you? Exploring your roots kind of as an early runner when you started your running journey, and what kind of led to wanting to do this sport, not just this sport, but then this sport in community?
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I even very first started running was some peer pressure from a group of friends. And I think that's how a lot of us get started in certain
Yep.
things, especially that was in my early 20s. And so we're all very impressionable. And at that time, I'm really thankful for the people that pushed me and encouraged me to sign up for the half marathon that they were all signing up for. So that was kind of the beginning. So community immediately had an impact on my running journey. And just as I became more involved in the sport and running became more a part of who I was, I just really wanted to seek out other individuals, other groups that were driven and goal oriented and positive and supportive. And so I've been thankful to have that in various ways along my journey. I'm also a part of a couple of race committees. So I help direct a couple ultra marathons that we have here in central Indiana, and joining in with the guys that started that group and those races. It's called Vashigamisha Track Club. It's a mouthful,
Yeah.
but that's one other group and segment of community that I have that I just really really appreciate and thrive when I'm in those settings.
And so I think there's always this idea, right? Because if you're a youth today and you're listening to this podcast, don't worry about drugs. Do not ever worry about drugs. There is no peer pressure for those. There's only peer pressure for running, and it's so much more fun. So do it. Start it now. um, but I'm thinking to those early days, right? We talk a lot about as runners, especially runners in community, that there often was that like not bad peer pressure, but it's always like that peer pressure, like you're seeing other people around you doing it, and maybe it comes in the form of an invitation to a group run, a brewery run, morning coffee run, whatever it is. Um, and so for you, what were your first sort of, were you hesitant at first? Were you someone who wasn't sure what your life was going to look like as a runner? What was going through your mind when your friends are saying to you or asking you, hey, do you want to do this really crazy sport where we just put on a pair of shoes and we just start going. We do 3, 5, 10, 26.2, 50 miles. I have to imagine that's not always, it doesn't always feel positive as you're getting into it. So what were your early days and what did those look like as you're thinking about, hey, okay, this is a very interesting sport?
Yeah, so I was not interested in becoming a runner. I thought that you needed to be have that skill without working very hard. I thought you needed to just be born a runner, so to
Mm.
say. Um, and to have wrapped my head around running 13.1 miles in those early days, it's just something that I had no interest in, which is really interesting at this point because out of that small group of people that ran that first half marathon together, I'm the only one that's still running to this day. So being the one that was the biggest advocate against it, it just shows the impact that positive influence of others can have in your life. Because little did I know, them introducing me to the sport and just getting me involved would just make such an impact on my life. I didn't know what that direction would look like, but I'm very thankful to have navigated that whole process and come out to where I am almost 20 years later.
And coming out 20 years later with, a CV that really a lot of folks would find joy in. I know we have Orange Theory down here in Hampton Roads, and I have some friends who do that on the regular. I have my own run club that I lead. I'm trying to make it to more as my schedule hopefully lightens up in the summer. And so you talk about all of these different places that you are, whether it's in leading a group or just being a part of a group or attending a group. Moving on, especially seeing now that, 20 years later, those folks that you started this journey with are kind of no longer a part of it, either in the same way or just at all. What's it been like for you over the last 20 years, seeing those transitions in who your community is, right? From going to running with this group of folks to then maybe developing into a run club and finding run clubs to joining and starting to go to places like Orange Theory to, really being a part of the community. What did those transitions look like for you?
So I feel very thankful and fortunate that I feel like I was kind of on the beginning stages of helping develop this Central Indiana running community. I was on the inaugural board for Carmel Runners Club, which is a very big running club here in Central Indiana. I was their first social media director and helped develop that club, which is still going all these years later. So I feel fortunate that I was able to be at the grassroots of some of these initiatives. Once I realized that, hey, runners need to cross train too and lift some weights and, kind of work on some other muscle groups. And I joined Orange Theory. I was able to even meet some really good lifelong friends there. Just being surrounded by people that are always working to better themselves is just always been inspirational for me. And I feed off of others' energy, and I'm just fortunate to be a part of all of that.
And so, as you're looking at the Central Indiana running community, and I believe if my geography serves me correctly, that is about the Indianapolis area, correct? And kind
Sure
of that
is.
surrounding metropolitan area. So how long have you been a part? So did you grow up in Central Indiana, or is this kind of new home for you as an adult?
Nope, I grew up here.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've been very familiar with the whole city and the surrounding communities, and I've watched all of the city grow and expand. There's a lot of several different running clubs within the area that I've been able to fortunately get out and share some miles with some other folks and meet a lot of just really great people.
Talk about developing both as a runner yourself and being a part of this developing community that's happening around you. And I know a lot of runners can probably look at their own communities and see how both of those things develop at the same time. Even maybe if you're someone like me who moves away from a community only to move back later once it's begun to develop and you've been able to play a part in that. So what's it been like for you? What have been some of your big focuses as you are working with others in Central Indiana and Indianapolis to bring and highlight this activity, this movement-based nature of running to the community?
So, as a running coach, I feel that I'm able to give some advice on where people might be able to pick up some easy miles and find a group of people to share some runs with, and I'm able to give some suggestions on that front for the athletes that I coach. I also, my first children's book called Can a Frog Jog? That book is centered around following along as the narrator is searching for his community. He's going through the animal kingdom and trying to find a jogging partner, but recognizing that not everybody has the same desires or same skills or same ways to move, and that's okay. But in the end, you're going to be able to find where you fit in. And I think that's a good lesson, starting out from a young age, that you can go off on your own path. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing, but there will be a place for you to call your place where you belong eventually.
And how important for you is bringing those stories, bringing those experiences that you've had into the real world, as you said, as writing a book like The Frog Who Could Jog and as a running coach?
Yeah, so I wish that growing up, I had had more of an influence in my physical fitness journey. I didn't really have those kind of role models in the 80s. I don't know that it was as prevalent as what you can find nowadays as people become more educated on being healthy and, the movement that it takes to maintain your health through later stages in life. So, not being exposed to that until my 20s, it's something that I wish I had seen some exposure and been influenced a little bit sooner in my life. And so becoming a storyteller for children, I think that is one way that I'm able to, help the younger generation, the next generation, realize the importance of movement and the importance of finding the community, the importance of setting big goals and believing in yourself. And if that's something that I can, translate to the younger generation, then I've done my job within that storytelling arena. With my athletes, we always focus on everything about the training process that has positive impacts. So, what I mean by that is there's always something to celebrate. We're not only strictly reliant on our time goals or our distance goals. It has to do with showing up for yourself, showing up and working together with others. Maybe that's the case. Finding ways to celebrate just getting out the door, because sometimes that's the hardest step in a training run or a particularly hard week or whatnot. So that's kind of where I'm at on both those fronts.
And so you talk about this storytelling and how you're coaching your athletes and how you're also hoping in that to give lessons to the next generation and what that means, especially from a movement-based perspective, especially how we take care of ourselves. And you've introduced our listeners to kind of that first book, The Frog Who Can Jog, and talking about community and really looking at what it's like to find community, to find folks who relate to you. And then comes along this idea for the second book, right? Maya Runs a Marathon. Yes. And what that means to be able to set and accomplish big goals. And so I really want to dive into how both of these books are connected to your running journey. So what about you, besides the fact of wanting to, obviously we want to impart these lessons on the next generation. And I even love, children's books aren't just for children, because somebody has to read the book to the child.
Absolutely.
And so, there's definitely like this thing in which, I could see parents reading this book to their child and also, absorbing the lessons from it. So what was the writing process like in both of these? What are the experiences that you're bringing into both these books, Frog Who Can Jog and Maya Runs a Marathon? And how do they come about?
Both of them had been percolating in my mind for a very, very long time. Within the past year and a half, I transitioned from my corporate job that I had for 20 years into full-time coaching, and just really trying to make a name for myself and for my business within the running space. And this was one way, and the time opened up that I had to be able to focus on writing these two books. So I'm really fortunate for that. But they were ideas I had for a long time. I felt like there was a lack of children's books with running as the main subject matter. There's all kinds of other children's books about dance and gymnastics and basketball and soccer, but there was nothing there really about something that resonated for me and for my friends' children. And, my daughters are almost grown now, but there just wasn't ever books like that. So I felt like there was an opportunity there. I know it's like a really niche market because, not a lot of people can relate to runners unless you've been a runner yourself. But the underlying subject matter and the lessons, like I've already mentioned, are pertinent for everybody. I mean, Maya runs a marathon. Yes, she's working towards the marathon as her goal, but really it's about setting big goals and learning to get through the process and the hard work, even when there's hard times within it, things you have to overcome, and then starting to really know that believing in yourself is going to help you throughout the duration of your life.
And as a runner yourself, knowing the importance behind movement, right? Behind moving our bodies. And so whether it is, running or another sport, whatever that might be, for you, what is at the heart of making movement the central theme of how you experience a healthy lifestyle, how you live a healthy lifestyle, and then how that kind of makes itself known in these books.
Yeah, I spent a lot of years through my running journey reaching for goals that were for myself. I was doing this all for me. And that's important. And there's a space for that. There's a time and place for everything. But I started a transition in my journey to where I wanted to begin giving back to this sport, to this community that has given so much to me. And so the children's books are kind of part of that. Coaching is a huge part of that. I want to help others feel the accomplishments that I've felt through reaching big goals and crossing finish lines. And I've also started giving back in other ways by participating in organizations such as Ainsley's Angels. I push at a half marathon at least once a year, a couple times, maybe a 5K here or there also, but pushing individuals that are unable to participate and run the races themselves, but giving them that satisfaction and that feeling of reaching a finish line. Because truly, their saying is that it's inclusion without limits. And I think finish lines are for everybody. And to help others reach those is super important part of my journey at this stage as I've transitioned into looking for ways to give back to the whole community.
And as we look at ways to get back, you talk about finish lines are for everyone. And we acknowledge how in order to get to the finish line, you have to get to the starting line, right? And for me, I always think about that starting line and all the stories and all the weight and all the connections and all the communities that are a part of those. And so when you're working with prospective athletes, when you're working with the person that you're going to be pushing and the team that's going to be helping you pushing, when you're working with the Girls on the Run folks in their stuff, what are some of those things that you're doing to help them get to that starting line that also reiterates like, hey, here's what's going to happen in the race? Because like, I think as we all know, once we get to that starting line, our coach is often, they're not there. I mean, there's some races where coaches will run with them, but it's all up to you, all the training. And so what are you doing in that journey to help them understand about the starting line, to help get them in that place mentally, physically, emotionally?
Yeah, so with my athletes in particular, we always have a race day strategy session a couple days out from the goal race. And the first thing that I do is I start with, let's celebrate how far we've come in this training block. So whether it was 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks in some cases, we worked very hard and here we are. The race should feel like the victory lap, because you're getting to reap all of the results that you've put in for all the hard work that you've had through the entire process. So let's start with heading into the race with a positive mindset, to celebrate getting here to the start line. And, sometimes we can't control what happens on race day, whether it's the weather or, sometimes it just happens to not be our day. But there's a lot of factors that can come into play. And I want to make sure we're stepping up to that start line with the most positive mindset possible. And that's reflecting on everything that you've done to that point to get you there. And so I think that's a great way to set yourself up for a successful experience, regardless of what the time clock says at the end. You can celebrate the fact that you're there.
And especially for someone who coaches such a wide and vast range of folks, from Girls on the Run to, I'm sure, adults.
Yes.
What has it been like for you to adapt your coaching philosophy, your coaching strategy for different age groups, for different fitness levels, just spanning such a big spectrum?
So in my previous role in a corporate world, I was a business development coach for hairstylists, and I had one-on-one meetings with them. So I think over that part of my career, those 20 years, I was really able to adapt my approach based on each individual. So I go into it knowing what each person needs and how I can support them and how their communication style works. And so I adapt how we interact based on on who the person is, what their needs are, what I feel that they need from me. And so it does vary, because Girls on the Run, the teams that I've coached, they've been in third and fourth grade, and that's definitely going to be a different approach. Sometimes it's like herding cats, but it's definitely a different approach than sitting down with some of my more serious athletes who are well into their running journeys and who are taking it very seriously and are looking at improving over their time and their PRs and things.
And so as you're coaching some of these youth, some of these kids, and helping them, you've talked about through your children's book, helping them learn, helping them understand the joys of this sport. And I think I can definitely see, how, I definitely know how difficult this is, as I also coach some young kids as well. But what has that been like for you? And what are some ways that you help them to see that, to see, even if you're not going to be competing at an elite level, why a movement-based sport like running, why this activity is something to hold on to cherish?
Running is accessible to most people. As you mentioned, it's kind of like you can just get your pair of shoes and head out the door. So if you can learn such the basic movements of running, that can be applied to any other area of athletics usually. So I think having that groundwork to know that conditioning and training for regardless of what your sport will end up being is important. But we also take small steps. So whether it's the adults that I'm coaching that are just getting into it, or the groups, third and fourth grade girls for Girls on the Run. The Girls on the Run program is really special in the way that it takes little steps at a time. So, you build up to running a 5K, but the first many weeks, you're just running for fun and you're playing games and tag and different things like that to start building that endurance. And then you start adding in more distance oriented type things through the meetings that we have with the girls. But shows that you can build up to something, even if it seems scary when you first hear about it.
And it continues to develop those girls as well, and helps them to understand. I think that, it's a great program for folks who have young ladies in their lives, and really helps, from what I've seen. I've never been a part of Girls on the Run. I coach for a different thing, but I definitely have seen the impact that Girls on the Run can make and what that looks like. And so transitioning from, and we've talked about how you adapt your coaching and things like that, and looked at, some of those younger ages. So now, like, looking at some of the adults, I won't call them older, but on the adult end of the spectrum, what sort of work are you doing? What sort of advice are you giving those folks? And what sort of advice might you give some folks who might be listening, who are starting that fitness journey through running, who are looking, maybe even maybe looking to make that next step? Maybe they've been more of a hobby jogger. They just kind of, they're always doing easy runs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they want to take that next step, or someone who's looking to get into running. What sort of advice, what sort of things are you looking as you look towards helping them?
To begin, I always like to make sure that everybody is aware to try and stay away from the comparison trap. Everybody is at a different stage of their journey, and where you're at is perfect for where you should be right now as an individual. And when you get on Strava or Instagram, it's easy to fall into those traps, but your step one, or what you're perceiving someone else's step one to be, maybe it's their step 30, and you just aren't aware of that. So you kind of just need to embrace where you're at this moment, and know that I'm going to be the one that helps you move forward and build on where we are, so you can achieve the bigger goals that you have in mind. So I think staying out of the comparison trap is huge for adults, especially. So that's kind of where we would start. But other advice that I really give, it's just about one step in front of the other. I have a friend, her mantra, she always says, run the mile that you're in. And I think that's pertinent all across life. You don't know what is outside of the training journey for a lot of people. You've got work-life balance, you've got kids, you've got who knows what going on. So we're just going to find what works for you within the spectrum of your entire life to make sure that becomes a sustainable part of your life and your journey.
And as someone who clearly plays a big role in the running community in central Indiana, in your area, I think you hit on two really good points there, and I want to focus on both of them. Maybe one and then the other, but as we're looking at what it means to be a part of community, when you're in community, when you're a part of a run club, when you're a part of a group of any kind, and you talk about it in terms of Strava and stuff like that, but even just in the community, what are some things that you're doing to maybe stay away from that comparison trap of looking at, maybe that person who can hold that, X mile pace, or who can run just, run forever, it seems like. What are you doing to stay away from your own mental comparison trap with others who are around you in direct community? Maybe not even Strava and Instagram. It's really easy, right? I could just follow 50 professional athletes and I can feel terrible about myself that I'm not as fast as them. But I think in community, it's a lot more personal, because now not only is it this person who is on Strava who is getting paid to do this, but now it's also like this person that is like physically in front of me that I'm hanging out with, or someone that maybe I'm friends with and I'm finding out. So how are you staying out of that comparison trap?
It's taken a lot of effort. To be quite honest, I have lost a lot of my speed as I've gotten older, and I've had to learn to be okay with that, because if I want running to be something I have a relationship with for the rest of my life, then I need to be listening to my body and what it takes for me to stay active. And that was a hard pill to swallow when I first started feeling the effects of all the years of training. So it was about shifting my focus, as I said, to more giving back and less about my own selfish personal goals that were running related. But I've come to terms with that and the comparison, and having other goals again that are not specifically like time based or numbers based is something that I just truly stress with people that feel like maybe they're in their, I don't know, more of like the twilight years of running. Like, how do we make this sustainable for my lifestyle, yet not totally break down my body anymore? So there is some balance there, and it does take some time to overcome that comparison battle. But you have to, kind of be happy with yourself and where you're at in your own journey. And even if that takes some mental training, I think everybody can get there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things, especially, when we look at community is, we yearn so much. It's almost like this draw towards community that if I'm not with like that group, right, then it feels like I'm being excluded from community. And so I know there's a lot of different ways that we can form community around, running. And so especially as you're leading in central Indiana, what does it look like for y'all to form a community, you and others in central Indiana who have been sort of the catalyst of the cornerstones here? What does it look like for y'all to form community that hopefully, and obviously it's not 100%, perfect, but hopefully doesn't fall into that sense of the comparison trap, where you start creating communities that, gather and nurture around, say, like certain paces or certain abilities. And obviously there's a lot that comes with that, right? I mean, and there's a lot of times where those certain abilities make sense, and yet you don't want community to be sort of excluding within areas as well. And so what are you doing to help people who are growing physically but also caring for the mental and emotional aspect of community so that the community remains strong?
Yeah, I think it's really important that if you're advertising a club run or a group run and you say all paces welcome, I think it's really important that the actual event needs to feel inclusive for all paces. And what I mean by that is I've had athletes explain to me that they've tried to go out and run with various groups over time, and they show up and they thought all paces were welcome, but then they were left in the dust. And
Mm.
I think that's a negative impact that these different various running clubs can have if they're not aware of what they're putting out there, and then not open and welcoming to people that come. So I like to be involved with the groups that are inclusive for all paces if that's what they say they're going to do. If it's an easy run, make it an easy run. If it's for socializing, then that should be what it is. But there's ways that you can also form community without it being such the pressure on your own self, and you can still work on and focus on your own journey, whatever that looks like. If, for example, you could maybe meet up at a track so everybody can run the paces that they need to be running, which might be faster than you, but you're all still enjoying the workouts together. You're all still in the same place. You can be supportive as people go past you or as you're passing others. And I also really love going out and cheering on at race days. So if I'm not participating in a local race, I will get out there with my cowbell and I will have mapped out a route, and I will see runners at 5, 6 different places. And that's doing what I believe helps foster the community. So if you're if you're racing in central Indiana and I'm not racing, I'm going to be there supporting you. And that's what I would want from others. So setting a good example is a good way to foster that inclusivity within the community as well.
And I think that's great. I remember back in my days when I lived in the Richmond area here in Virginia, and the race team that I was a part of, the coaching group that I was a part of, we would have track Tuesdays. I think we'd meet at the track on Tuesdays, and during training season, we had our train for your fall race and train for your spring race. And so during that time, we would meet on Tuesdays at the track. When we weren't, we would just meet at some pub and then run from there. But, I remember thinking to myself, well, how am I supposed to get my track work in when all of our paces are so radically different, right? I'm out here trying to go for X mileage at X pace. We all had the same workout. We were all doing, 8 by 400, whatever. But I began to see that it's okay, yeah, we might be doing different paces and we might be kind of coming around at different times. But I remember every time I was coming around or someone passed me, they were giving me a cheer. Whenever I was passing to others, they were giving me a cheer. That's why I always say, there's ways that I think we can be in community together at different paces. And like you said, if we're going to say all paces are welcome, there's a lot of nuance in understanding what that means. It doesn't mean that we're expecting, the 7-minute miler to drop back to 12 minutes a mile, or even the 12-minute miler to hop up to 7 minutes a mile. But to find ways that we can support both as they're doing things. My co-leader and I in the current run club I lead, oftentimes we'll ease our paces up a bit within reason for us where that doesn't lead to injury, because obviously you have a lot of those concerns when you start cutting your stride and everything. But we'll ease our paces up so that we can run with other people. Him more so now than me. I'm still working myself back, but when we were both in shape and we could do it and we could cut it back, because we wanted to run with people, especially new folks who were new to our club and hadn't been there before, and we really wanted to make folks feel welcome and make folks know like, hey, your pace is your pace. And doing things like that help to reinforce. And I mean, we even now have just like a group of walkers, but they've got about like 4 or 5 of them who their whole thing is walking our 2-mile route down and back. And there are some times where some of us we get our run done earlier in the day so we could walk with them and crack some jokes because they're always laughing and having fun. And so really playing off that inclusive portion of what it means to be welcoming, and also help folks know that, what I'm doing or what you're doing, that they don't need to be on the same level, because I'm doing what I need. What I'm doing is doing it for me. And you're doing what's doing it for you. And I always have to kind of chuckle when, we have like a local 5K. And of course, the winners are coming in like 16, 17, 18 minutes. And then I'm coming in like 20 to 25. And then some of my friends are coming in like 35 to 40. And they're like, oh man, well, I wasn't as fast as Andrew. I'm like, hold up. Like, you see how far off I am from the winners? Like, how did your race go? How do you think that you did? Did you have if you weren't looking for a big time, did you have fun? Hey, is that a PR for you? I remember helping a friend who had never run below 34 get like so close to a PR, and they were just so excited when they got like that close, and they're like, oh man, the next race. But she was also feeling like really down. This was a race in the middle of August in Virginia, where not only is it like 90 degrees, but it is 1,000% humidity. And I'm like, look, you just ran like 30 seconds off of your best 5K ever, and it feels like 1,000 degrees outside. Mm-hmm. I said, you have nothing to be concerned about. You don't need to look at anybody else. I said, you are on an amazing path. And I think that that's kind of some of the things that we might lose out on when we look at community only as a vessel to like 100% make ourselves physically better, that we have to compete at the front, without recognizing that my physical best doesn't have to match the physical best of others. And how we're dealing with that within our lives. I mean, I think that's such an important balance. It almost feels so inadequate to even talk about PRs or paces or anything like that. And so in your training, what are you doing to you talk about you're coaching athletes, which I'm not even going to ask how many you coach, but you're coaching athletes, you're coaching girls on the run. You're running with Ainsley's Angels. You're writing children's masterpieces for budding runners. You're doing all of these things. What do your goals look like on the running side?
So I've got some big goals personally still. I've finished 43 marathons and 17 ultra marathons. My big goal through my marathon journey was to finish all the World Marathon Majors. So I earned my 6th star in Boston in 2023. And since then, they've added a 7th World Marathon Major, a Sydney Marathon, and I've gone and I've run that as well. I would like to continue with marathons, running one on the remaining continents, finishing with Antarctica Marathon in a couple of years before I turn 50 years old. So I've got a plan in place to run in Cape Town next year at South Africa, and then I'll run a Patagonia Marathon in Chile in South America, and then Antarctica Marathon eventually. So those are my personal big running goals. My bucket list would be to run the 777, which is the 7 marathons, 7 continents in 7 days. Yep. So that would be just a huge dream, a bucket list, but that comes with a large price tag too. So that's kind of the most inhibiting factor for reaching that goal. But I coach athletes anywhere from sub 3-hour marathoners to 6-hour marathoners. So to your point, every person should find where they should be celebrating, and the start line and finish line are for everybody, regardless of what pace you're at. And I've been all over the spectrum on my pacing and my marathons times. just because it's dependent on the stage of life I've been in, depending on, what's going on, or like if there was an injury or training cycle wasn't great, whatever the case may be. And so I'm fortunate enough that I have so much experience that I could bring to the table to talk with these athletes, regardless if they're going for a 250 or sub 6 hours. There's a lot of similarities and parallels that you could draw through learning from your own, kind of pathway to get to finishing 43 marathons.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a lot. And especially as you're handling a lot of this other stuff, you're doing all of these other things. And like you said, you kind of have moved away from your corporate job to focus on a lot of this stuff. But how are you balancing? How are you maintaining this balance that gives you the opportunity to have your hand in all of these different passionate places, to be able to not only help others achieve their goals, but then also to maybe look within yourself and say, all right, but I also still have some goals that I want to achieve. And we never, it's never selfish for us to go after those goals. What I do think is selfish is trying to burn ourselves out, trying to do both. So how do you not get to that place where you are feeling burnt out from feeling like, okay, I really want to go after my goals, but I also want to coach folks. I want to do all this stuff over here. How are you, not to say it's always perfect, how are you helping yourself in that process?
I think one of the biggest lessons for myself, and then for anybody else trying to balance so many things, is you just have to plan ahead. You have to look at your week in front of you and kind of reflect on what are the things that you have to get done, and then what are the things that you could fill in with if there is time, and kind of just map out what your time looks like. For me, that's what I've learned to make myself most productive. But sometimes for people that are high achievers, it's hard. They do get burned out. That can be a problem. So it's very important to schedule in your rest, your reflection, your downtime, because if you're not fully charged, and you're, totally zapped, then you're not doing yourself any favors. I wouldn't be doing my athletes any favors if I was just totally strung out. So scheduling the full week ahead of me and making sure that includes when my rest time is, when my downtime is, that's really important, I think, for everybody. We live in a society where it's like, go, 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 go. If you're the busiest, you're the best. And if you're doing the most, then you're the best. And you kind of just, again, that can come from the comparison trap, Instagram kind of thing. But I really think in order to truly be your best, you've got to listen to your body and plan those rest and recovery times.
And I mean, they become even more important when you are doing everything, because you leave yourself so susceptible to injury, like we said, burnout. And burnout does its own things to the body. And so I think definitely, as runners listening, hopefully you hear in that space, especially if for folks, go back to my episode with Avier, and I mean, you hear someone who is a working professional who is doing a lot, and you hear someone like Christi who is more self-employed, doing stuff on her own but still training, and what it means for both of those. Find your nature of what it means to rest and recover, because when we push our body over the limit, it doesn't really do well for anybody, whether it's ourselves, whether it's our community, whether it's those we love. And so we kind of bring all of that together as, we look towards, where you're going in the future. You've talked about some of your goals on the run, that 777 challenge. I'm going to file that away under never, and allow other folks to do that one. I enjoy following it. I will say that when it comes up on a yearly basis, I enjoy watching it. But aside from those challenges, from those goals on the run, what are some other goals that you have as you're looking forward, as you're looking to what you want to accomplish in the future?
I think, number one, as a coach with athletes, it's wanting to see them succeed and help them discover what that looks like. Because again, it doesn't have to be time-based, but success comes in all different ways. And when I get a message from an athlete after their Track Tuesday workout or whatever the case may be, and they felt like they just nailed it. I mean, getting those types of messages is just what fuels my fire. So I'm still in the growth part of my business. I've got room to take on a few more athletes right now. So growing that is where I'm at. I do have a couple ideas for some more children's books down the road. So that will definitely be something that stays with me and on my resume as I grow as a storyteller and learn more about that process. It's kind of a self-discovery thing too. So, just I get I feed off a lot of the positive impact that I feel that I make within, other people's lives.
And, continuing to see those goals reached, I think becomes the ultimate, joy of the journey is, today it starts, it's kind of like those books, right? You start and you have a thought of, a frog who can jog or Maya runs a marathon. And I'm sure, for the first time seeing it in published format, it's almost the same for our running journey as well. What starts out as like one step on like your first, 30-minute run becomes maybe half marathon, full marathon, whatever that may be. And to see that flesh out over time. So let's hit these end of podcast questions as we close our time out today. So Christi, speed run or long run?
Long run.
Morning or evening runner?
Morning.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Okay. What do you listen to while you run?
So this is an unpopular opinion. I am a headphones-free runner. I do not listen to anything.
All right.
I'm in my own thoughts out there.
Hey, I do not think is an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people who do it. I don't do it on every run, but I do occasionally have runs where I go without headphones, and only half the people look at me like I'm psychotic. All right. Favorite distance to race?
26.2.
Okay. And then, Christi, as we close out, can you please give our listeners a reason to join their local run club or group?
Find someone that can push you, that encourages you, and there's an accountability aspect there as well for showing up. And I think that's really important.
Y'all heard it from Christi. Y'all get out there and join. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gosh, I really do miss it when I'm not able to bring these episodes to you, because even just in re-listening to that episode as I edited it together, it was just a reminder of how much I enjoy these conversations. So, hopefully to keep these conversations going, always let me know if you are interested. Even if you think you don't have a story, but you think, hey, I'm a part of a running community, let me know. But in listening to Christi, it's taking that step. It's doing those things that drive us forward. It's asking those questions of what can I do to continue to develop? Is it writing a book? Is it maybe starting a group? Is it maybe just showing up to that group run? And I think in a lot of ways, those are the things that oftentimes prevent us from taking that step in the first place. And so I loved being able to talk to Christi and being able to see the importance of community in running and what it can do to our lives as we think about it. It can affect us not only as we think about running, but you hear all of the other ways that it has led Christi to do things in her own journey. So I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Christi so much for joining me on this episode. I want to thank you, the listener, so much for hanging out with me today on Run, Build, Grow. Again, if you have a story you'd love to share, or even if you think you might be a little timid, send me an email, andrew@runandrev.com. Send me a message on Instagram or Substack. Make sure to subscribe over there. Hopefully, I'm going to get back into a publishing routine over there, and all those links are going to be in the show notes, as well as ways to connect with Christi. Make sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. If you're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, whatever it might be, make sure to follow and subscribe so it pops right up in your feed. I'm hoping to be able to do this, but as I do this, I just want to be able to bring out episodes. So if you want that episode to pop right up there, and you know what, if you got an extra minute, maybe while you're on Apple Podcast, you're on Spotify, leave a quick rating and review on Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, you can drop a comment on this episode. Just a simple way to help other people discover what you loved about this show, what's resonating with you, and continuing to read those out if you leave those, shouting you out in the next episode. And if you want to go that extra mile, if you want to help to continue to support me, to support this podcast, to support this journey, I invite you head on over to buymeacoffee.com/runandrev. Again, link in the show notes. Whether it's a one-time tip because you love this episode, you just want to buy me a cup of coffee or buy me a beer or two, or you want to become a regular supporter of this podcast and of the work that I'm doing, every contribution helps to keep this community growing, both on and off the run. Again, I want to thank you for being here, for being part of this journey. Until next time, go crush it out there. And as always, make every mile count.